All right, sweet. We should be live now. So, my name is Jack. As you know, could you
hmm
introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Will. A little bit of background about me. I'm a professional software developer. That's what I do for a living. Been doing it since I was 19, so about 17 years now professionally. That's what I do,
It's a lot
and
of
I special
experience.
tons of experience. And what I really do, just to simplify, is I solve complex business problems for basically millionaires and billionaires and multi-billion and trillion-dollar companies and make them even richer. So, in doing that, what ultimately you do, both on a small and large scale level, is you automate different business processes. That's ultimately what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I have an expertise in that. And then, watching your videos, I'm about to become a new father myself, and so I'm definitely like looking for ways to basically build like side income, something that's not going to take a lot of my time, something that I could potentially automate, something I could put ideally a few hours into and kind of you know uh, put as much on autopilot as I could,
Yeah.
through my expertise and watching your videos and trying to learn, the techniques that you're using for your own business. That gave me the idea. Well, if I can understand all of the ins and outs, like even the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, then I can actually write really, really in-depth software and potentially even save you money as well, because you might not need to even pay for those services that you are using. Like, I mean, it would probably take me a little while to automate something like Hydra because I imagine they've got a lot of complex logic as far as. So just so I don't know how much you know about like technology and techniques that these tools that you're using are,
hmm
but the secret behind them is called screen scraping. I don't know if you're familiar with that term or not.
Now, could you
But
explain more about what screen scraping is?
absolutely. So the idea behind screen scraping is I'm sure you know what HTML is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything that you're using, all the tools, everything from eBay to Hydra Lister to the emails inside Gmail, all of it is HTML. All of them are web applications, right? And
Yeah.
the code that gets rendered in your browser, that's HTML. And then if you have enough logic, like even the Chrome extensions that you're using that basically extract those URLs, I think it's called like link grabber or something. All
Yeah.
they're doing
Yeah.
is different forms of screen scraping. That's all they're
hmm
doing. So basically they're looking at your browser and they're looking for pattern matches. They're looking for content within that HTML that they are
Okay, so
identifying.
they're looking at basically the source HTML of the web page and
Yes,
finding patterns within that
exactly,
and
exactly.
isolating them.
And that's the magic behind. That's how they work.
hmm
That's how all of them work. So yeah, something like a tool like link grabber, they're just looking for URLs, addresses, and
Yeah,
there's
that one's pretty simple, I think. Out
yeah,
of
and
out
then
of all the tools.
right, and then something more sophisticated, right? Something like Hydra Lister. What they're going to have to do is they're going to do a combination of things. They're going to need to be able to basically you paste in a batch of URLs, and then they need to actually know the layout of each screen inside eBay and the layout of Walmart.com, for example, because they have to. How it would work if you think about it through a workflow perspective, you were writing code, right? You would actually need to go out to you need to pull up the web page, excuse me, for a listing of Walmart, right? You would need to harvest like the description, you would need to harvest the images, you would need to harvest all the description, and then you also need to know like the input fields where when you're creating an ad on eBay, right? Each little input field and basically mine that data and then inject it inside each field that's inside eBay for your account and then loop that process. And that's basically from a software standpoint, that's how they work.
Yeah, yeah. So
You
it
know,
would be unique to each kind of Walmart would have one process, whereas using Home Depot or something, you'd have to look in slightly different places to find the same
absolutely.
information. Whereas
Right.
with eBay, it always requires the same information. It's just a matter of
Right.
figuring out where on the web page that
Right.
information is available.
Right. The cool thing is I do think though, the only challenge that you run into when you do screen scraping techniques is you end up married to the layout of your source, right?
hmm
So for example, if Walmart for whatever reason changes the layout of their product page,
Yeah, you
you're
have
gonna
to
have to,
update.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed that with SKUgrid and Hydra sometimes, where like,
Right.
well, if a source creates like it's even very simple things like they change something's position so that it's instead of being on the right column, it's on the left column, and then it
Right.
takes the tool a little bit longer to catch up with that.
Right. Right. In fact, go
Is
ahead.
there is there anything that I haven't done videos about that you would like to know about that I can just tell you right now?
I haven't watched every single one of your
I don't
videos.
expect anybody to do that, so it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've watched quite a few though, and just so you know, my very first job I ever had was for a drop shipping company,
Hmm.
and then when I was 21, I actually started my own drop shipping business, actually selling cigarettes online and stuff like that, and drop shipping them directly, from Russia to avoid taxes and things like that,
Yeah.
and I did my own business like that, and so I'm familiar with the concepts, but I've never done it with like some people do Walmart, some people do Amazon, some people do like AliExpress,
Yeah,
some
you
people
just
do
named the big three, basically, as
yeah,
far as I know.
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
bunch of other ones, anytime you can make an object appear at somebody's house, that's a potential source for drop shipping.
right.
But Walmart, and I don't know too much about AliExpress, but I know that most traditional kind of where you create a website where you sell things, most of those websites are sourced from AliExpress, whereas more of the kind of eBay accounts are sourced from places like Amazon or Walmart.
Right. And so, what I really wanted to get into is like, I mean, I could watch the videos and I could probably try and go and implement this stuff myself, but I think like where I see like just so you know, so there's no hidden agenda or whatever, just where I see the advantages. Obviously, you've been doing this a long time. You know the ins and outs. You have a methodology. You have kind of a secret sauce to this, or an art or a craft to this, where you kind of gone through the trials and tribulations and probably had your failures and your ups and your downs, and you've probably really refined
Yeah,
your
I
tech.
have had some time. I wouldn't say I've gotten to a point where it's all refined and I've figured everything out, but I'm definitely on my way there, that's for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and with that being said too, it sounds like you also have the methodology too where you want to bulk list and you want to scale up as much as you can. Because
Hmm.
obviously the more items you're getting on there, it's almost like the shotgun or casting a wide net. The wider the
Yeah,
net, the
the wider the
more.
net, the more fish you
Yeah.
catch. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the thing right now is I'm just trying to isolate a method that isn't necessarily really profitable, but makes a little bit of money because
Hmm.
then because of the nature of bulk, you can scale it exponentially. And at this
Right.
point, my eBay account limits are almost non-existent. The only issue I have to deal with is PayPal, but that's mostly a cash flow thing. It's not a solid limitation on the amount of items I can sell.
Okay. Yeah, see, and that's the kind of stuff that I would need to, talk about too, because as far as my experience goes, like I've sold items here and there on eBay, but I've done it, at your typical, like sell a single phone because I don't want it anymore type of thing. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
I've never done like I've never implemented like a business on eBay. I don't have a store. I've never done anything like that. I've never attempted drop shipping. And to be honest with you, I've been a little nervous about it because of the I don't knows. Like right now, there's just a lot of unknowns for me. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
and I don't know the
I mean,
craft.
every listing. I mean, even as it is, like there are people out there who know how to do this bulk listing format that I talk a lot about and actually make money. But the thing is, they're not, as far as I know, they're really not sharing that information. And so
Mm,
I'm on to something, but I'm
right,
still on my way there. I haven't gotten there yet. And so one of
right.
the reasons I'm trying to reach out with people is, so that I can provide some more kind of
Oh,
valuable content and, get people there, aside from myself. But,
right. Oh, you're chopping up. You're breaking up a little bit. You
oh,
there?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You good? All right, sweet.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So, I guess where I'm going with this is, I mean, I could write software right away, that would automate a lot of the stuff you do, like the opening of tabs, the way you filter URLs. In fact, I could write software that could probably reduce a lot of those steps. And as I learn more of like even what Hydra is doing, I might and how you want to use it,
Hmm.
I might even be able to write a version of Hydra that's more tailored to what you want to do. For example, I remember in one of your videos I watched, and I understand that I get why you probably couldn't do it through their process, but because you basically copy paste and don't refine any ads, and I don't know how you're setting a margin. I don't know how that works, but potentially. we could look at the shortcomings or limitations of Hydra and bake that into kind of our own software solution. Do you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, because
So
Hydra's a tool that you can use in the bulk format, but it isn't specifically made for the kind of bulk methodology. It's made for kind of more of a optimization methodology and increasing the or being able to post optimized listings in a short amount of time. Most people that use Hydra, I believe, they'll use the single item lister. So what it does is instead of automatically scraping everything and updating it, it just kind of one at a time shows you a confirmation. And it's like, okay, these are all the fields that we've pulled. Would you like to edit any of them before we post this item? Whereas when I work with it, I want to post lists of thousands of items at a time. So I don't want to look at every single little field, I just want to see what I'm working with and then just post as many as I can and see what happens, But
right.
It's definitely not made specifically for the kind of bulk methodology. So there's definitely opportunity there for sure.
Okay, yes, yeah, and I've only watched your videos from an academic perspective. I haven't actually gone out and tried to use these tools yet. I mean, I went to the website, I looked at it from a high level, I read the marketing and sales pitch of these tools, but I haven't, like I said, before I do a deep dive into it, my first thing is like, everything that I'm like, watching, everything from the way that you're scraping the URLs and the tricks that you're using to like use keywords like brown on Walmart to bring up these different random categories.
Yeah, to create the big lists of items.
Yeah, immediately my mind starts going like this, because from a software automation perspective, I start thinking like this. I'm like, well, what if you had a database or even a flat file, right? In that flat file you had brown, gray, like green, every color of the rainbow, and then other generic terms, right? And then the software, as soon as you hit the start button, boom, it automatically ingests all these, and then boom,
it just pulls all the links, and then I can go through those. And because what I've learned is, so when I first started this bulk thing, I had been optimizing and using like the traditional dropshipping methods, where typically you find a product and you do some product research to figure out if that's something you want to post, and then you spend the time posting it. Whereas with bulk, I just posted a ton of things just to see what would happen, not necessarily to make any money. And so what I learned is that there's keywords in the titles of listings that are associated with listings that have problems and listings that aren't likely to sell. And so by filtering out those keywords, you can post items that are more likely to sell in the bulk kind of methodology versus an optimization methodology. But it's still very much a learning process. I've only been doing bulk I started in maybe November of last year, so it hasn't even been a full year yet that I've been working on this concept of just posting as many items as possible while being able to be profitable. So there's still a lot to work on. But from what I understand, anytime that I have one link, which I then use a process to convert into multiple items, there are software opportunities that could just create all of those items from that link without me having to do all of that work, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's the idea. So and that's where, kind of your experience, your knowledge base married to the idea of, a custom software suite that would basically do the heavy lifting for you. Then you've just got to kind of, it allows you to like tweak at a faster level too. Like, if for example, 10 keywords that are highly successive, and you put those keywords into some kind of, like I said, an XML file, a database, a flat file, whatever it is, and the software does the heavy lifting for you, and you just got to sit back and watch. Then you can watch whatever analytic tools you're using to see your sales going through, and then if that doesn't work, you can quickly adjust it, create a new flat file, hit the button again, boom, and then create another mass blast of listings.
I understand. I think so. I've thought a little bit about this, and to be honest, what I think would be most beneficial from a listing perspective is actually something that automates the keyword removal process. So it really doesn't take me that much time, in perspective or in retrospect, to create a list of 100,000 Walmart URLs, right? Unique Walmart URLs. That would take me maybe 5 or 6 hours. Not that much time, really, if you think about it. The thing is, shortening the process where you eliminate the items that chances are aren't going to sell well in the bulk process, so that you can take that list of 100,000 raw items down to a list of maybe 20, 30,000 items that are more likely to sell in the bulk format. Because what I've realized is that there's this constant competition out there. And the way a lot of people get items that sell is they look at items that are currently selling and then they kind of scrape them. So no matter what you're doing optimizing, you're spending like in traditional optimization, you're spending a lot of time per listing. So if a competitor is kind of looking at your progress and then stealing that listing, you're losing a lot of time. Whereas with bulk, you have the advantage of basically just scanning an inventory, possibly getting items that have just been uploaded that day, that kind of thing, new items on my source, Walmart in my case, but could be any source, and then you're posting them and then giving them an opportunity to sell, which then the competition, once you've sold a couple of them, will kind of catch up to. But I think the real benefit of bulk is kind of reiterating that process and just rescanning, and then every time that your competition catches up and starts selling items that you've already sold, you just move on to new items. So it's a really different methodology, because I think with bulk, it's all about, like you're saying, like automating a lot of as much as you can and not having to spend time on things, because really that's what most dropshippers do, is that they spend a lot of time on individual listings. They really commit to them, and then those items may sell a lot, but then competition can always see that those items are selling and then kind of start selling that item as well, and inevitably over time you'll start selling less. But if from the beginning you can just, you're only planning on selling an item a couple of times, almost like you're providing something for the competition to feed on, and then just reiterating and doing it again and again and again and again and again. As long as you can always reiterate and stay ahead of the curve, then I think that it could be quite practical and could lead to a pretty big amount of money, because most of the people who are currently doing drop shipping, like I said, as far as I know, they do optimization, and if they're optimizing things, they're looking at things that are already selling, because they need to first determine that it's worth putting their time into the listing to make sure that it sells, right? And so I haven't really found a whole lot of information about kind of the alternatives there, like about bulk, because I know that other people are doing it. I've seen eBay accounts with like 200,000 or 300,000 items. There is no way that you can run that as a traditional optimized business. Like, you would need to have an absurd amount of employees to run on that scale, Right. So I know these people exist, but they're not sharing how they do it. So I know that there's ways. I just got to figure out how,
Yeah, and if you figure that out, and if you think there's a way that you could tweak it, refine it, or even automate it, through different strategies, that's the opportunity where, basically a custom software solution would facilitate that.
Yeah.
Because basically where I'm getting at is, as you're generating these unique product URLs, if there's ways that you can mine extra keywords from somewhere, or images, or basically automate even the optimization process in real time right before it gets posted, and now you're doing it on a bulk scale, it's going to increase your sales, increase revenue, and everything.
Yeah.
So that's, the cool thing is when it comes to writing the software or whatever, for the most part, I can pretty much do anything. Like I said, my specialty will be automating, but the trick is knowing the ins and outs of the business and how to write the software in such a way, how to apply the rules and the techniques that are going to drive the revenue and everything else. It's really that's what's going to make this process, successful. And I think it's also going to create an ability to create a more adaptive business model, more rapid adaptive business model, right? So that you can quickly, shift whatever listings you want, and ideally maybe even quickly mine other sources very, very quickly. Like you said, you're on Walmart, but what if I wrote, a Walmart engine, and what if I also wrote an Amazon engine or XYZ engine or whatever? And so now you're not just sourcing from Walmart, but you're also sourcing from Amazon at the exact same pace, or AliExpress, or any one of these other sources at the exact same pace that you're doing Walmart,
Yeah, so it's almost like you could use software to make it as convenient to use other sources as it is to just use one source, because the software can kind of, completely change the time spent it takes to get products from other places. And that's something that And in my experience, what it's all about is identifying kind of the forces that affect most of your competitors and figuring out ways kind of unique to you as a person, how you can, I don't know how to articulate this, but like a lot of people who dropship are very paranoid. So if you're a person who isn't very paranoid, there are ways that you can use that to your advantage and gain an edge over your competition.
Right, right, right. And this is where you're, by you sharing your methodologies to the public, obviously you gain somebody like myself who wanted to reach out and collaborate with you in such a way that it would be, mutually beneficial to both of us. You're going to get, a software package out there that's going to streamline your business, and I'm going to learn how to do it so that I can obviously, generate more revenue for myself as well.
Yeah.
So, some other questions that because to make it, because this, for me to write software like this, takes hours and hours and hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
to sit down, and then plus I had to, approach you in such a way that because when you're writing software is very programmatic, right? And computers are not very forgiving. So when you're developing and writing code, everything has to be very specific because you're writing an instruction. Like just like you would bake a cake or whatever, like there's a certain algorithm you would apply to how you'd make, say a cheesecake versus a birthday cake, right?
Yeah,
They're both cakes.
Except with the computer, if you have the wrong ingredient, it just wouldn't even make anything at all. It has to be very, very specific.
Yep.
Because that's how computers work. They're incredibly logical.
Exactly. And so that's why, I would, we'd have to like work together. So it probably would take a lot of time consulting back and forth for us to write it. But, I'll share, I'll do as we get going, I think it's good if we break it down, like, what are some areas that we can automate right away. And then we'll start refining and building out the software solution from there. But some of the questions that I have right away though too, to see if this is obviously an avenue I want to go down, because I'm very, very interested in the idea too, is like, what is the revenue generating potential? Like, for example, is this your full-time business? Do you have a regular job, or is this all you do? Or
yeah, right now I work at Starbucks still.
Okay.
I'm at a point where, like, when I'm doing really well drop shipping wise, I don't need Starbucks, but the reality is that it fluctuates a lot. And my current understanding with bulk is that a lot of it's based on the time of year. Like, most sales happen in the fourth quarter or at the end of the year. So if you can make something that, breaks even in the slower times of the year, chances are it's going to be quite profitable when, way more people are buying things at the end of the year. Like I said, I'm still very new into all of this. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to do more of these calls, is to kind of get more experience from people.
I got you.
So what I understand with, 1 second, sorry. Okay, so there is a lot of software out there for drop shipping. And my understanding right now is that it's not a matter of like kind of creating software that doesn't exist yet. It all already exists somewhere. The thing is figuring out how to be unique. And so my roommate is a programmer. So he also, I'm showing him all this drop shipping stuff. He runs his own account. So I have a sense of kind of what it takes to make drop shipping related software based on what he's told me. But what I have observed about other people, and this is mostly for your benefit, is that most of the current competition out there is kind of like suites. They're programs that try and do everything. So you pay like a per listing fee. And for that, you get, the ability to post items, the ability to find items worth posting, some kind of automation in your tracking, uploading, and that kind of thing. But what I've, at least personally, I've observed is lacking is very small pieces of software to do each individual thing. So I think there's definitely a market for like 7 to 10 different pieces of software that you sell individually, and like each one, one is like, anything to do with repricing, that kind of thing. Another thing is anything to do with uploading tracking from your email account, that kind of thing. Another thing is anything to do with kind of, posting items and all that. Because to be honest, out of all the software that I've gotten involved with, which is like Hydra, which is, the bulk posting software, and SKUgrid, which is inventory management, and a couple others, the one that I really think has the most actual value and that I really appreciate paying for is this thing called Pigeon Tracker.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so all that does is it just looks at your email account, finds addresses, looks at your eBay account, finds the addresses that we're supposed to be shipped to, and then uploads the tracking information and automates that process. Aside from that, the only other thing that it does is when you're placing orders, instead of copying each field at a time, it provides you with one button. So you copy the buyer's first name, last name, address, zip code, all of that in one click instead of like 6 or 7. And this tool costs like $15 a month. And in my head, that is where there's more kind of potential for profit, because while, you know, there's so much software that you can make for dropshippers, like when it comes to managing databases like SKUgrid, that is a whole, like, that's not the kind of software that you could just make and then have it replicate itself without too much overhead. Like, you need to have tons of customer service. You need to, you know, deal with all the issues that come up. There's a whole lot of work that kind of comes with that. So that's one thing I've been kind of paying attention to, is like what kind of tools can be made that don't need much overhead to maintain, right? Because Pigeon Tracker really doesn't need much. It's just kind of copying, you know, the eBay, what's available on a certain eBay page. And if eBay updates their layout, well, obviously then you got to update the tool. But if eBay doesn't update their layout, there's really not that much overhead that you need to do. And I think that's where there's more money, is making these small tools that do like kind of very specific purposes, and then selling them for a smaller amount, because then you can have, like, you know, some people might use 4 of the tools that you sell, whereas most people will only use 1.
Right.
But
yeah, so that's actually where I was gonna, you know, highlight next. So I can't tell you like how many times throughout my career I have seen this actually happen, where you first start out with an idea of, okay, you know, the idea is how I'm going to get into the drop shipping business, and I want to automate as much as I can, and then I want to put that bad boy on autopilot, create like a little Windows service or a task tray application, and, you know, it just sits back and I can go sit on an island somewhere and drink Corotas all day, and my business is running. That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
But then as you start talking to people, you're like, wait a minute though, I actually see an opportunity in doing, you know, SaaS or software as a service, right? Where I see like these 10 different tools, and none of these tools are really unified. You know, they're these disparate different tools. What if we created an entire suite that was actually unified and could do all of these things better than all these little independent ones, and we become really competitive, and we charge, you know, $25 a month or whatever for a tool that does boom, 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 and tailors to bulk listing, and can do individual listing, and can kind of do it all. You know what I mean? So, you know, you said that you haven't really seen a tool that's designed for bulk listing, and that's kind of your expertise. Well, what if we built one? You know what I mean? What if we introduced that into the market as a whole new tool? You know what I mean? So there's an opportunity there, and then you know, you, like you said, you make your money per, you know, especially with bulk listers. Maybe it's a penny an ad, maybe it's 5 cents, maybe it's a dime. I don't know what that ratio would be, but you know, that accumulates. And when you're running SaaS or software as a service, if you do it right, you can get your costs down to, you know, like pennies a month. You know, I know some hosting companies for the type of software that I write that they literally have like unlimited bandwidth, unlimited email accounts, unlimited storage, unlimited, you name it, unlimited. And they're like, I think it's like $2 a month, and like $24 a year, something ridiculously cheap.
Yeah, that is quite cheap.
Yeah, and then you just, you know, you write the software, you push it out there, and then the idea is that you do SEO and different techniques to drive people, you know, to want to consume and use your software. But then once you start building that up, then it's just a money making engine, and then you know, you just
that's kind of the glory of all internet and software related tools is so I used to be involved in kind of physical local business, right? And every time you make a sale, you have to physically make a buttload of cabinets and a buttload of other stuff, and you have to deal with all of this. There's all of this time that has to happen every single time you make a sale. Whereas in the world of internet and software, it can just, you know, keep duplicating, triplicating, exponentially growing itself. And obviously that'll entail more work in some form, but if you compare it to the amount of work that is required to scale a physical business,
Yeah.
it's almost non-existent, you know?
Well, yeah,
And
I mean, you know, in basic fundamentals, I'll tell you. I mean, look at all the richest men in the world. You know what I mean? They're all related. You know, they're all either programmers at some time or related to software
yeah,
development.
something to do
Work
with
for some
computing.
tech company. You know,
Yeah,
the Bill Gates, the Paul
at least
Allens.
in this current age.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about
Yeah,
computers.
and the thing is, you know, anything you can think, you know, if you speak the languages of computers, you know, you can build. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
if somebody
yeah,
else, you team up with a visionary, somebody else that's got a real good business model, you know what I mean, and you pair up with them, then and you implement that, and you get on the ground floor early, then you can become one of those overnight millionaires that you see about, you know, the guy that wrote, you know, Angry Birds. Look at that shit. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's just it was one video game, and it was a
Yeah.
wrap for, you know, or
Yeah,
Flappy
I
Bird.
don't
Sorry.
I don't want to become an overnight millionaire, but overnight earning like 40 grand a year off like an hour or two a day, I'd be happy with that. That is exactly what I need.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, I make significantly more than that, you know,
Yeah.
but you know, but I'm looking for that though. That's what I'm chasing. So I always think big, you know what I mean? And when I want to get into this, I want to think big, you know, I want to think, how can I scale this out on a exponential scale, whether it be
Yeah, yeah.
doing the drop shipping business itself and finding ways to scale that exponentially. So like the example I was giving is finding ways to automate as much as that, and then maybe drive as many sources too. Like if people are just using Walmart and they're having 200,000 listings, well, what if we're using the other ones too, the other big ones, the
Yeah, what if
Amazon.
you could have 1 million listings?
Exactly,
Technically
exactly.
my account right now can post like 2.7 million listings.
Right.
And I'm not taking advantage of that at all. I'm not even taking
Yeah.
advantage of 10% of that. So,
Right. Yeah, so I mean that's just it though. It's like, what if you could? You know,
yeah,
what if
yeah,
what if you could? You know, so and what if the software could make it really easy for you? You know what I mean?
yeah,
You know, so that like I said, you just feed in a few keywords and boom, and you know, like a web crawler, you know, or a spider, it goes out there and mines all of those ads and boom, injects them into your account. And, you know, it can do it. It can do all of it overnight while you're, you know, playing Xbox or whatever. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Just
Yep.
You just got to start the process. And
Exactly.
even
You
if
know
it
what I mean?
takes 10 hours, you can be sleeping for that 10 hours. You can do
Exactly.
whatever,
Or
and the
yeah, have
computer's
a
doing all
life
the work.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
know, and
this video is getting to the point where I gotta end it soon because I'm gonna publish this to YouTube. As long as you're all right
oh,
with
are you?
that. Yeah.
Okay.
But is there anything you want to talk about before? You got like 5 more minutes, maybe.
Um. Well, I mean, I
We'll probably
guess.
have more conversations in the future, but for right now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like if you're interested or whatever, you know, we should probably, you know, like at some point maybe talk next steps. Like,
Hmm.
do you want to pursue, you know, automating what you're doing and trying to scale that out? Or do you want to seek opportunity and maybe creating different tools that we would also apply? So, I mean, that's one way that this could grow too. We could create the tools for ourselves, right? Try and streamline that. And then from there, see if we can find a way to basically generalize these tools in such a way that we can now turn them into software as a service and you know, basically lease them or sell them as a
Yeah.
service.
Yeah, it's
You
the
know,
distinction
for the
between
masses.
creating a tool which you use to create or to earn money versus selling a tool that other people use to earn money, but you earn money from just selling the tool. It's kind of
Right,
two different kind of worlds almost.
right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it is. It is. It is. I mean, think about it like this, right? If you think about like Windows, right? You're running Windows right now, right? I could
Yeah.
have easily been, and by the way, I used to work for Microsoft. I could have easily been one of the engineers that helped write Windows, and I have to use Windows every day to do my job, right?
Yeah.
So I'm eating my own dog food, if you will. You know what I mean? I'm using my own. I'm using my own stuff. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm going with this, is like we end up being kind of beta testers, if you will, of our own ideas. You know, we put it into practice. We will be able to validate if it works or not, and then turn that into a service. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That the masses could use, because we could refine it, you know, through our own process. You know, by basically pass or fail. It's either going to make money or it's not. You know what I mean? And we can refine it till it does. That's the cool thing about stuff. We can just refine it, keep refining it until it does. And then once we get to that point where, you know, it's simple, it's easy, it's automated, you know, then at that point we can turn it into a service and really, you know, try and generate a lot of revenue from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I've been really interested in Marc's channel, because he's out of all the people I've met, he's one who is regularly exposing himself to a whole bunch of different programs. Like what he does is if somebody posts an ad for something or like some kind of software that they're doing, he buys it and tries it. And he's just like, he's involved in so many different communities that I know that he has access to all this kind of information which could really, really be used to like have an edge over the competition, right? Because a lot of people with dropshipping, once you get involved in it, you kind of, at least from what I've observed, most people tend to kind of stop paying attention to the rest of the people, you know? So if you're in a position where a whole bunch of different people are explaining to you what they do and that kind of thing, it really gives you an edge. And I think at the moment, I'm not really interested in getting involved in any kind of, you know, software creation or that kind of thing because I'm still so new into this. Like, I've talked to people who've been doing this for like 10, 15 years. I'm 23. I've been barely touched into this industry. You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to me as a person and what I want with this channel, if at any point you feel like there may be something that I know that may be useful to you, tell me and I will share it with you regardless of whether like I'm going to get involved with any kind of opportunity that you may create from that information. But I want to make sure that you know that if I have access to any information that is useful to you, regardless to whether you're going to work, you know, we're going to work together in any way or not, that you also have access to that as long as you reach out. Okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I was going to say too, you know, I sent you a URL in the IM right there. That is, you know, that's to my own company. That's actually one of the very first products I actually wrote in 2007 that does something like this. It actually crawls Craigslist, looks for ads, things like that. Will send you notifications, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, as far as you know, doing some of this automation and talk about different, you know, scraping techniques and things like that. I mean, that's ultimately what all these tools are doing. They're just doing it, you know, behind the scenes and in different ways.
Yeah, just kind of tweaking it a little bit.
Exactly.
Do you want me to share that? So I'm going to post this to this conversation to YouTube, as long as I'm going to double check the audio and everything, make sure it's, you know, viewable. But once I do that, is there any other kind of link you want me to include? Anything about you or any other information?
No, I'm good. I mean, more or less, this was just, you know, like kind of like, you know, like chit chat on how we, you know, how we might be able to, you know, basically take the concepts, the ideas, the principles that you're already using, you know, to make money, you know, and to find a way to streamline it, optimize it, you know, use software to automate it, simplify it, and scale it out. Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, all right then. I think that's everything for this. I'm gonna have to head out. It was really great talking to you. I appreciate that. I'm going to be trying to do more of these kind of conversations with people. And, yeah, that was cool.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah. I learned a lot there. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Have a great day, okay?
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.